So I will hand this over to Eric Persing. You guys enjoy. This is an incredible panel.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. And thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
This is fun. This is a topic that I have no problem talking about. It's awfully fun. So the first thing I want to ask each of you guys is kind of a three-parter. What is your relationship to sound? How did you become a sound designer? And what is your philosophy of sound?
My earliest sound memory started when I was probably 3 or 4 years old. I grew up in the countryside, and my grandfather was warning me against the train, snakes, and other things that I wasn't going to see. I could just pay attention to the sound. So I was like, here's the train coming. You have to listen for it. Okay, great. So by the time I grew older, I became, well, for us people, it's a passion. For the outside world, it can be an obsession. But basically, everything to me, it's about sounds. And in a way, my philosophy, it's very simple. I can hear musical sounds and music everywhere. How I get there, it's just a matter of details.
Right.
And that's pretty much it.
Cool.
The modular philosophy that the 2600 kind of presented to me in the beginning, that kind of stuck with me. So I've always been fascinated by that, because you find all these unique things, because you're basically creating an environment that's doing all this stuff, and you'll find all these little sweet spots and accidental things that'll happen. It's kind of like being the programmer, the scientist, and like the physicist all in one. You know, you get to design this little world that happens, and it's all basically dealing with sound vibrations and how they're interacting with each other.
How about for you, Scott?
So for me, I consider myself an audio storyteller. I do a lot of movies, and it's really about how do I take sounds and how do I create an emotion with them. And anything that makes sound, I use my voice a lot as an oscillator, and then put it through all sorts of things that'll mangle it. I've been the voice of a lot of creatures and things, and sometimes it's even silence. I did a movie years back called American Beauty, and my goal for that was silence. So, you know, a lot of it, philosophy, I guess, is figure out what you want to create from an emotional standpoint, and then follow that thread more than, I mean, sometimes cool sounds are cool, but how do you want to utilize them? How do you want to imprint them on an audience, and how do you want them to react to that?
Awesome. What I want to know is how do you bill for silence?
How do I bill? You know,
How about you, Eric?
I think my earliest experiences with sound, kind of realizing that sound was something that you could explore, was when I started to go beneath the piano. Instead of playing the top of the piano, you know, I opened the bottom of the upright, and I was like, what's all this stuff down here? This is cool. You know, I said before about the first time I played a mini Moog, it like changed my DNA and did something strange to my body. And I was just determined I've got to learn how to figure this out, and how to, well, first of all, to shut off the sound because the store manager's getting mad at me. I was determined because there was no presets,
Right.
And so there was no factory sounds.
Yep.
And so in order to play the synthesizer, you had to learn to play keyboards and learn all the functions and how they were. And I loved that part of it. It was fun. And it wasn't until I got to LA many, many years later, and I started finding out that actually hardly anybody knows how to use synthesizers. And I had this kind of weird skill that for me was I was never, there was no such term as a sound designer.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a relatively recent term. You were just a synthesist.
Right.
Yeah.
And so a synthesis meant you played and you programmed. And so I got kind of in the back door of the music business because I had this affinity for synthesizers and creating sound. And I didn't know I had that talent. And so it was kind of a funny way, but because for me it's always been about music.
Right.
And it's just a part of the musical experience. So I guess if there's any philosophy I have, it's kind of represented in the Spectrasonics logo, which is a prism. And the idea of that prism is that a prism takes all the light, and a prism filters that light into the various color spectra. That's kind of my philosophy of sound, is I think that there's all this sound out there. And many times I don't feel like I'm creating a sound. I feel like I'm discovering a sound. And that those sounds are out there, and it's just if I can get in the right space and in the right frame, in the right moment, and capture it, then I'm being that prism. And it gets really trippy when you think about colors are actually frequencies and sounds, and so it actually is all the same sort of thing. So that's a little bit of my philosophy. What sound are you most proud of creating? And maybe it's a sound you're known for, and also how do you feel about that sound now?
Wow. I guess when people typically think of what sounds I've been known to make, it's always been very robotic, alien. Alien versus Predator is probably the best way to sum it. That's what a lot of people tell me when they hear my music. They get these visceral images of like H.R. Geiger hallways and strange, dark environments. And I've always been really interested in kind of like the sci-fi, end of the spectrum, really strange, kind of unheard sounds you wouldn't typically normally would hear. A lot of times when I was like Eric, I hired to work doing lots of synthesis programming for keyboard companies like Nord, Roland, and Korg, and did some stuff with Moog as well. And they've always would hire me to kind of step outside of the box and make sounds that would emotionally take you to another place. Maybe not a typical place that you would go to, like a happy, fifth pad chord or something like that. They would never hire me for that kind of stuff. They're like, we want the Matrix, cutting, time stretch, frozen in time type of sound stuff.
You haven't done a lot of Rhodes patches, I don't think.
With the clients always kind of knew exactly what they wanted. I always get contacted by the same clients over and over that want the high tech, very, very high tech, robotic, futuristic type of sound, which I do very well. So if I had to tell them what my signature kind of sound, what I do really well that represents what I do, it would be that kind of end of the spectrum.
Cool.
Alien organic, I guess, to sum it up.
What about you, Diego? What do you think you're best known for?
Well, there's one sound that when I made this sound, I was just making another sound, but then you told me that it was one of the most used in Atmosphere was Romeo and Juliet.
That's right, Romeo and Juliet.
And I'm particularly attached to that sound because it's like the story. There's a romantic story behind, but it's a sad story. So when I made that sound, I was thinking about the story, and this is a very simple arpeggio sound made with ARP and processed with a lo-fi equipment. And apparently a lot of people was using it.
And I was right, too.
Yeah.
I was right.
Yes.
It was instantly one of the most used sounds of that.
And it's funny that when you create that kind of sounds, you don't even think about, I'm going to make a signature sound.
It just comes out.
It happens to be.
Right.
Another infamous signature sound is the burning piano, I guess.
Yes.
It's been, around enough to be recognized. And later, I started, being into creating sounds by playing trees, by playing notes and tonal stuff out of trees, and building my own instruments. And this started as well as something that I had to do to explain one of the composers I was working with, what I was doing. Because I said, I built a guitar with 4 piano strings and 5 resonant strings across. And he goes, what do you mean? Okay, hold on. I make a video, I'll send it to you. And that's how I started.
Is that right?
It was for Paul Haslinger.
Oh, cool.
When I worked on Into the Blue. Mm-hmm. I made those ambiences when people go inside the ocean.
Yeah.
And then later on, I started, building. I built the Xperi bass that Michelle was mentioning, and that was another gigantic surprise because Hans Zimmer called me to be one of the featured soloists on Sherlock Holmes. And that started as an experiment, actually, because I wanted to recreate the same kind of thing that you do in physical modeling, that you can have, you can stretch the size of an instrument. So I tried in real world. I attached the strings of a violin to a double bass, and that's what happened.
But you were thinking about physical modeling when
Yeah.
you were doing that? Ah.
Yeah, that was the idea. It was
didn't
really,
know that.
The idea was to hear the resonances of the viola, violin, and cello strings on the body of the double bass.
Wow.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks.
All right, Scott.
Oh, goodness. I guess what I'm known for the most is how I use my voice to create sounds, everything from Herbie. If people go, I didn't know Herbie had a voice. And I go, did you find him cute? And they said, yes. I said, thank you. The voice of Dragon and Shrek. So I've taken my voice, used huge processing, and people kind of like that. So I get called for that a lot. Same thing in video games. I'm a ton of characters. And so I use my voice a lot, and I have a very intricate set of hardware and software that I use to change my voice. I'm also half the voice of Godzilla, the way back when. So I love it because I can do filter sweeps and all kinds of weird things with my voice, and then how it interacts with outboard gear and software takes it to a whole nother level. And I can create an emotion. I watch the screen, I put mics on, I put headphones on, and I start vocally sculpting what I want. And I can make my voice sound like many, many different things.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
How about you?
The one that you hear in every trailer,
Yes.
still, every trailer, every movie is Oil Campo.
Right.
And there's two sounds from Distorted Reality. One's called Oil Campo, and the other's called Rusty Spoke. And it's the sound you hear like whenever one scene transitions to the next. But for whatever it is, people are like, that sound. and then the other one is the big boomer. That one's also still in like every trailer, the boom, that sound, in a world.
Right.
The sound that happens right before the guy says "in a world," that's a big boomer.
Right.
And the Hoover sound was a big surprise because I got a lot of requests from the Japanese at Roland that they wanted Hoover sounds, and they were getting all these requests for Hoover sounds, and I was like, what's a Hoover sound? And so I'm trying to find out what this sound is, and researching it. This is kind of like early days of the internet, and there wasn't a whole lot of information. And I finally found this website. There's a whole website devoted to this sound, and it's like on Wikipedia and everything. There's a whole like history of this sound and everything. And I'm like, I'm gonna find out what the source of this sound is. And then I found out that it was my sound. And what the sound is there was a sound in the Alpha Juno 2 that I put in as a joke for the Japanese engineers, and it's called "What the?" with a question mark, and it goes like that. And so the British dance producers were like, "This is cool. It's like a vacuum cleaner," which they call Hoovers.
Hoovers, yes.
So that became the Hoover sound.
Right.
And it's like in it's that that whole sound. So
That's awesome.
that was, so it was very weird to do all this research, and then it's like, oh, that sound? Yeah, and what was funny is I was getting criticized because I hadn't done enough of these sounds, and that we weren't really hip with dance music, and
Right.
it's like, okay. I had the D50 for about a year and a half before anybody else did, because it took a long time to develop. And it was really awesome to be able to, those sounds were like my personal sounds.
Right.
And I was so attached to them. I was like, this is the precious, and then when the D50 actually came out, I heard this American Airlines commercial that used like almost all the sounds in one commercial. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't go to a session now and use these sounds because they're going to think I'm using presets, but they're my sounds. And so I was really depressed about it for about a week because I was just hearing this stuff everywhere. I was like, oh man. And then I had this great realization, which is probably one of the best things that ever happened to me, which is that I said, well, I guess I need to make some more sounds.
There you go.
And so it's really funny to think about that I was worried about 64 patches, big deal. Especially since then, the number of sounds, and it was a great thing creatively because it was just like, okay, those are done. let's make some more, and let's do something else.
Yeah.
And so that was a great experience. Do you more often let the process guide you, or are you more often guiding the process, where you have kind of a clear goal in mind?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. Sometimes you using technology or certain instruments where the process becomes really interesting, and you discover something that might happen accidentally, or just by hooking something up in a specific chain, you discover a cool sound, or try things. A lot of times I experiment, and then sometimes I sit down with a very clear path of what I want to do. And I'm the kind of studio guy that draws like diagrams. I'll have tons of little sheets of paper around in the studio, drawing things and writing things down, and drawing when something should crescendo up, or there should be just an intense emotion or feeling at a certain part, where I express that. So it's a lot of times diagrams and layers and textures, or certain things that I think of in my head.
You diagram the sound on paper?
Yeah, I'll diagram it on paper a lot,
Interesting.
And because
When you're in the middle of it or in the beginning?
through all stages, And I designed a lot of my music that way too. Sometimes when I was working on tracks, the best way I could think about it was just visually drawing things out. If I wanted to hear a sound that would break apart and scatter, I would draw like pieces and bits of lines that would kind of break apart, kind of like I don't know, like Ligeti score or something. Just kind of, you see everything, each component, maybe like on a frequency spectrum from low to highs, and it would just help me kind of organize all these crazy things that I would capture, and kind of put them into a structure that would be interesting, and kind of take the listener through this sort of sonic journey or roller coaster ride. But kind of keep it open too. Let the technology and kind of have fun with it too, and not let, that's always how I've been. I'm always seeking to find new sounds that haven't been heard before, or that have been yet to be discovered. So I'm always kind of hunting and fishing for stuff, pretty much.
Yeah.
And but then when I find that stuff, I catalog it, and then I kind of try to put the most interesting things that kind of fit like Lego pieces into a bigger picture.
Cool.
So,
What about for you, Diego? Do you know what you're going to create in advance, or do you let the process guide you?
When I use computers, plugins, and software, I am guiding the process. So I know exactly where I'm going, especially because I'm working so fast that it's really happening quickly from my mind to the final sound. But when I'm working with my custom-built instruments, it's the opposite. And I actually realized that if I try to play one of my acoustic instruments based on previous techniques, for example, the Xperi bass, if I try to play it as a double bass, just as double bass, it's not going to work. First, because I'm not a double bass player, and it will just frustrate me. So I basically have to really get lost for a second, try something, and then for example, there's an instrument that I built. It's not public yet, but I can tell you what happened. I was working on a pitch for a video game, and I was playing a melodic line on it. It ended up sounding okay, it's not bad. But then I was telling Miko, I was like, I hate this. This is freaking me out. I mean, I'm going to burn these instruments, really. I spent $1,000 for nothing because it doesn't sound like nothing. So I said, you know what, it doesn't matter. So I went next to the instrument, and I started doing something like gun, 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 and then spontaneously it happened, and I got it. And I filmed it before I forget, and that's how it worked. So there's really a different approach. When it comes to technology, plugins, I don't have to use thousands of different ones, because I like using things that I know are effective with my style. But when it comes to put my hands on something real, trees or instruments, I prefer the more experimental or spontaneous approach.
Guided by nature.
Yes, it's true. It's true. Think about it.
Absolutely.
How would you approach a tree and say, okay, now I'm going to play this score out of it?
That's true.
You can't. You really can't.
How about you, Scott?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I think the first part where it's predetermined is when I go out and record. I record all the time. I'm always out recording. I just came back about a couple weeks ago from Cape Canaveral, where I was recording the Grail launch, and we got a chance to go in a clean room where they had, where they were building basically the space station. And there was a scissor lift. We shut off all the alarms on it and did some strange stuff and kind of started rewiring it. And there was this neat little when it compressed. So we brought the mics in and put all the stuff in there. Then I brought it back, recorded it at 192, then dropped it down, and also it's like, and I got a couple big movies coming up that I'm definitely going to use it on. So that's kind of the source side. So it's very predetermined with wonderful accidents that happen. Then I think once I'm in the studio and I go, okay, here's all this great source, but what do I do with it? How do I manipulate it? My eyes kind of go white, and I just start going on the gear, and I go in this weird zone, and I can't communicate with anybody. And I just get lost.
You're a method sound designer.
You get lost. You're like, oh, what's that? And I remember this new processor or a new plugin. But then when the project comes up, you remember all these great sound sources that you're going to go to. But then when the time comes, I think then the process just takes over.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. So I try to divide my process two different ways. I try to, when I'm especially when I'm trying to create new sounds, I just go for it. I don't edit myself, and I just create. I let the tape roll, and I just hours and hours and hours of stuff. A lot of it is just horrible, and but I don't censor myself.
Yeah.
Because after there'll be a whole bunch of just kind of garbage, and then something magical will happen, right. and then you'll sort of explore that, and then you just killed it, right. You just killed it to death, and then it's just horrible, and then it turns into this whole other thing. Right. Yeah, that's pretty cool. and so I have just reams and reams of that kind of stuff, and then I come back on another day after I've had some sleep. Yeah, usually even weeks later. And then I put on my editor hat, and I'm like, as harsh as I would be with any other sound designer on myself, and I'm a pretty good editor. And I go, this is great, this sucks, this is great, name it, and I'm like Mr. Cataloging Man. Yeah. And so I kind of do it as two different things. So there are times, and it's like those techniques you said, you develop techniques and a vocabulary of okay, if I need to do this kind of sound, I've got these techniques in my back pocket. Yep. Yeah. I've got these tricks, I've got these certain things that I can use. Yeah, you want that kind of sound? I can do that. Put these things together, and then there's that kind of sound. So that's like where you really know what you want to do, whether it's a recording thing or a synth thing. But then there's the other time when I think we're all talking about is what we really enjoy is that time where you're just kind of, like you said, you're in a trance. You're just like, I love sound, and I'm just spacing out. Yeah, then you realize you haven't eaten, and you're like,
and you can't communicate. You can't communicate.
I don't think. I know that some of the best sounds that I've ever made, I did in my pajamas, and so we won't explore that too much. Okay, how do you know when a sound is finished?
Wow. These are really good questions, but I guess when it's completely finished is when I feel that it emotionally conveys what I originally had wanted it to be, whether it was really aggressive, mean, and metallic, or subtle, delicate, and I mean, there's any emotion.
So you have a feeling.
I have a feeling, yeah. Like just, just like you guys were talking about. I think when I'm working as a sound designer, I think the most important thing is to be able to convey a specific emotion across to the listeners with just sound, just using sound. I don't have the luxury of actually being able to sometimes use synthesizers. I have to do it with all field recordings. I go out and field record all the time. I actually have my sound devices recorder at the hotel. You just never know when you're going to get a crazy sound. So I just keep it on me at all times.
There was some good wind this morning.
There was.
There was some excellent wind.
There totally is. And
I thought about all you guys. I was like, they're all
I wonder
probably
if they're
awake
getting
going,
this right now.
check it out. There's kind of some.
It's a
little
wind in the parking lot.
Exactly. You look at all the the tools that you have, all the parameters that you have to work with, and you figure out how can you tell a story, how can you convey an emotion using what you have in front of you. I feel that those exercises have really, really helped me convey messages and build skill sets in whatever environment. It doesn't necessarily have to be using computer software or synthesizer, but it really helps you just build an emotional feeling with that sound. I think that's the most important element. I don't know, probably straight off topic a bit, but
How about you, Diego? Do you know how do you know when to stop?
Well, there's two aspects in my opinion. One is the technical aspect. One, the sound is mastered and it sounds full, so you can tell it's complete. But then there is the artistic, and especially in our case, from how much a sound is playable. And actually, this is a great lesson that Eric taught me, because at the very beginning, when I started working with Spectrosonics, I was creating these tiny little stories in one sound that were sounding great on one key.
One sample.
One sample, but they couldn't really be transposed up and down.
You can't play chords with it.
And so I was like, all right, so this is not a good sound. And it's not really about a good sound. It's like how much other people can make out of that sound. If you're making that as a record for yourself, it can be good, but you have to think about, when you're a sound designer, you also have to think what you're giving to people, what you're creating for people. A sound is ready when, yes, there is the emotional part, that's very important, but there is also the aesthetic part. If it fits with what you're saying, I wouldn't even try to create a sound that is not my kind of sound, because I don't think I would be able to express, as I said, ultimately what's the role of that sound for other musicians to use.
How about for you, Scott?
You know, it's funny when you mentioned that before about how you make sounds and you make this massive library. So I've got two modes, I guess. When I grab a new piece of technology and I just experiment, takes a couple days, and that's kind of my artsy-fartsy kind of just go in the zone and just see what I can do. And you know, put things together, put distortion pedals and wah pedals and voice boxes and just go crazy, you know, and just experiment for days on end. Okay, that doesn't happen that often, but when it does, I really like it. How do I know when a sound is done? Hate to say it, one of two things. My face either falls asleep on the console, and where I'm just, okay, I guess I'm done. Or it's like, it has to be done by tomorrow. Guess what? I'm done. You know, and
deadlines can be a beautiful thing.
You know, I think what I've learned from when I first started, it doesn't matter if it's a simple sound or a very complex sound. It's knowing when to go, you know what? I'm going to step away. That one little line on a sheet, just one line, that's all I needed. That simplicity, and having that maturity and confidence in what you do to kind of go, I think I'm done. It's true. And knowing when to step away.
Yeah, it's. I think that's the mark of a good sound designer, is knowing when to stop.
Yeah.
And I used to have producers tell me all the time when I would be creating sound, they're like, no, don't change it, it's perfect. I'm like, no, but I can give it a little bit more. I beg them, can I please just add a little more? And I promise I can get back.
But you can't most of the time.
Yeah, that's true.
You're already traveling too.
That's right. Yeah, but I agree with you guys. I think it's a gut feeling, and although I do find it for designing sounds for virtual instruments today. Is very difficult to figure out where the stopping point is, particularly on a patch, because we've gotten a lot of feedback from people over the years. We used to make sounds very polished. You know, it's like there is literally nothing more that can be added without it just turning into a gloss of, you know, stuff. And we found that it's because now you have the tools in the instrument, you have EQs, you have compression, you've got reverbs and flangers and all kinds of stuff. And if you put too much in the soup, like you said, there's nowhere for the musician to go. Yep. And so trying to find that balance of, it's in a place where it's a good starting point for somebody, but it's still impressive. It's still an impressive sound, but it's not like, every sound has to be like, whoa, it's just, like, your hair blows back.
Right.
Not everything is supposed to be that way. So,
It's also good, I think, that when you create something, you live it, and especially when you put long hours in, you put it away. Sometimes it's good to come back the next day or the day after, first thing in the morning. Your ears are fresh.
I do that.
Because there's times I've gone, like, oh my God, this is great. Oh, you feel I love myself. And then you come in the next day, and you go, oh, this is crap. And then all of a sudden you go, what was I thinking? Or times I thought I had crap, and then I come back to and I go, this actually isn't bad.
The beautiful thing about ear fatigue, we're not immune to ear fatigue.
Right.
Especially because when you spend so much time with sound all day. I have a question for you guys. Are any of you other guys jealous of people that work in graphic design or writing that get to listen to music while they work? That's something that when you're a sound designer, you cannot really listen to music while you're making sound.
Actually, this is an important point for families that live with us because we require silence.
Oh, totally.
We can't really live in an environment with radios, TVs on.
No.
We are a big pain in the butt, basically.
Well, actually, to sound a little weird, I actually listen to music when I design.
You do?
I do. And it's weird because I need to get in my headspace of what I'm trying to create. So I'll listen to orchestral. Now, it's played really low in the background. A quiet room for me will make me crazy because I hear everything in the room. And I kind of need, maybe because it's my original New York background, where New York was always noisy. So if I got something that's really kind of slow, like when I was working on the Doors and everything was kind of like, okay, so you've got to have this kind of chill atmosphere. But then I work at something, so I'm sitting going, okay. So I've got this thing kind of going like, okay. So all of a sudden I've got this backbeat that's hitting in the background and I'm sitting there working. And I will literally pace myself to what's happening in the music.
That would drive me insane.
Oh no, and listen to some Pink Floyd or something, and or it just gets you in an emotional place where I could stop thinking about the real world and what's going on and emotionally take myself. So I actually listen.
I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. I could never do that.
It's pretty cool.
Do you guys have the ability? Any of you have the ability to shut off listening critically all the time to sound? Listening to everything that's around and analyzing it and all that junk that goes on.
That's actually quite a big problem for me lately. I have problems sleeping because if the sound wakes me up or something, I'm a very light sleeper. My brain instantly starts analyzing what the sound is, where it's coming from, where's the direction of it, or And I've been trying to record these owls at my house for the past month. So I have all these barred owls.
So you can put them out of phase.
If you could see my house, and my wife's laughing here.
Canceling.
She's I've been trying, and it is driving me nuts because last year I tried to record them. They come out at this one time a year, and they make some really interesting calls. Their howls are really creepy sounding, and I was like, oh, I could totally use this. And so I have the microphones all set up at the front of my house, all tripods, all these cables. I have multiple, sound devices, recorders, and everything ready to go. And I'm just anytime, I'm just completely on call right now. I think I hear the owls.
I have a similar experience with squirrels. When they run on the roof of your house, it's like, okay, and then you hear, okay, that's the sun. That's the friend of the sun. and you start making a catalog of squirrel sounds.
Yeah.
We're definitely a weird bunch.
Yeah.
I have a 7-year-old son. When the first year of life had microphones surrounding him, because babies at about 2 weeks old sound like dolphin.
Oh yeah.
That just kind of really and I went, oh my God. So my baby's sitting there nicely cuddled up in his thing with boom mics.
I hope you took a picture of that.
Oh, we did. And to go how crazy it was, because when I was doing Chronicles of Riddick, and I figured, well, my kid can get in SAG. The problem was he wasn't born yet. But the question is when life starts. So I got all of these body mics for my wife. That I started recording the baby in the womb, just because thought, why not, you know?
Yeah.
And I actually used it in the movie because there's a part where there's a baby in the womb, and I started doing it. And then I thought, can I get him into SAG? Because, I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, you get kind of crazy. My wife already knows, you know, she smiles at me and puts up with me. And like one day I was painting and it starts thundering and she's looking at me smiling and I'm painting away, 3, 2, 1, I went, ran down the ladder, grabbed my recorder, started setting them up. And she goes, well, it took you longer than I thought it would.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, good.
That happened to me too. What about you?
I'm glad I'm not alone. I'm feeling great comfort right now.
That's great.
One of my favorite moments at home was the insulation blown into the walls, and it was just the greatest sound. It was like, oh my gosh, they're almost done. I gotta get it. It was just like this. All the walls were going. You know, it's like, yeah, you have those moments, and there's just no way to shut it off.
Crazy in a
Yes,
group.
that's right.
Do you find that when you socialize, we're going to be the social misfits for a second. When you socialize, I find myself going, hi, what do you do? Oh, you fly aircraft. Can I come record it?
Exactly.
Everything's like, maybe you're recording source. What do you do? What do you do? Factory. Can I?
It's crazy to find out how much I have it's scary how much I have in common with you guys.
I know it is.
You know what I mean? Like
It's
I'm
very
hearing all
weird.
these things and I'm like, that's
Thank
me.
you to our wires.
That's right. It's like a 12-step help group for
Exactly.
I have to stop thinking about those squirrels. I know it's hard. It's hard for me too.
My name is Eric,
It'll get better.
and I'm a soundaholic.
Exactly.
I'll have a recorder when I leave this earth. It'll be with me.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right, what is the most unusual request you have gotten? While you're thinking, I will tell you mine.
Sure. Okay. You guys
Once I got the request to, somebody wanted the sound of ping pong balls being crushed by doves' wings. And it's like, okay. And then another one was somebody asked for the sound of 70,000 generations passing.
From when to when?
Exactly. And it was like, not 50? No, it's 70. So I've had a few of those. Do you guys ever get color, the color thing? More.
Oh my God, we were just talking
Okay,
about.
the reason why we're laughing here is we were actually right before talking about this very specific thing, and I was doing a commercial, and someone went, "Can I have it yellow?" And I went, "Oh my God, I got the color request." I started, and they're looking at me like that's weird. I started laughing. I went, "Oh, I finally got the color request."
Have you ever gotten it?
I have gotten that request before, yeah, where we wanted to sound more blue, and I had the same initial reaction you had. I was like,
Are you
I
serious?
actually got the cliche
Right.
color request to define a certain
And
mood or
clients
emotion.
don't like when you laugh at them, by the way.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
why we're laughing
you could
now.
you could just laugh at that point and be like, it's going to be an interesting couple
Yeah.
weeks for me working with
I've gotten orange. That's the one I've gotten. I've gotten blue before too. Blue and orange.
blue.
I think I guess I'm lucky because I've never got the color, but I got something similar when they come in and they say, it's almost perfect except for the trumpet doesn't really fit. Yeah, but it's a guitar, so hey, give me a color, okay? It's probably easier for you.
Oh man.
Yeah, clients are awesome.
It was like the one where they go, "Can I get the nails and chalkboard?"
Oh yeah, right.
And you go, "Really?"
What about?
I know what you're saying, but I don't think you really want that. You know?
How about can you make it more smiley? Can you make it smile more?
Oh yeah. I wanted to ask you guys about those strangest adjectives that you've gotten. I've gotten. Somebody asked me to make something more plummy, and I was like, "What is plummy?" I had somebody describe a sound as fruity,
Fruity.
Yeah.
and I was like, "Okay, fruity." And I also in the UK they say something is sorted.
Sorted, yeah.
And it took me a long time to figure that out because the guy was saying, "Oh, that's sorted."
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, "What?" And it was a compliment.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
It means
Yeah,
it's
well
really,
sorted,
it's
yeah.
really together. It's really, really together. Any words, strange words for describing sounds?
mean, I guess I get them all the time, but it sounds like blah, blah, blah to me.
Right.
I just go, give me that, and you just go, because you're sitting there going, okay, gotta think really quick. And they throw these words out there, and you're like, okay, that's nothing. That's,
You don't know what you're talking about.
A lot of times what I try to do, I had a very fortunate experience early on. One of my early movies I did with Oliver Stone called Born on the 4th of July. And what was interesting, I went to Oliver and I said, okay, Oliver, what do you want? And, Oliver being Oliver said, Scott, look, if I told you what I need, I don't need you. What I need you here is to tell me what I need. I said,
There you go.
okay. So now what I've learned also is...
You tell clients, you say, Oliver Stone says.
What I find in asking people creatively what they want as an artist is difficult because most of my clients, directors, are not sound people. They don't know. Now, what they do know is what they don't want. So what I do is I kind of change the conversation. When I start hearing crazy talk and they start going off in adjectives, I said, okay, I'm getting nothing from this, but I really do need to get something from this meeting because I can only meet once. So a lot of times I go to them and say, okay, what don't you like? Oh, I don't like this. And they can come up with 100 pages. I don't want it to sound like this, and I don't want it to sound like that. They say, okay, stop. Now, give me X amount of time. Let me come up with some ideas with you, and let me see if you like it. Kind of giving an idea so you don't step on the landmines. Because I find a lot of people, when they do it the other way, they come up with stuff and they go, I hate that. And you only get so many chances of how many things they hate before they start doing the LA thing. They smile at you. Okay. And next thing you know, someone else is on the gig,
Yeah.
Or they send you references to. I mean, sometimes like when I work with clients, they'll send me tons of references. Like they'll just find a bunch of YouTube videos of reference tracks or sound effects or a sequence of something in a film that they really like.
Yeah.
Where like, oh, we really love this part where the Tron cycle powers up and goes, shifts into the turbo mode or something. They'll be like, this is what we're looking for. If we can get something like that, those are the clients that I love. That they know exactly and they find the things that they like and they want you to sort of create something like. But I've definitely worked with the clients that they had no clue what they wanted. They didn't know what they wanted. You're all sitting there on a call and you're like, okay.
I actually find when a client tells you exactly what they want, it's breaking down my creative process. It doesn't really work for me because it's way too specific. I like the approach of what they don't like better.
Yeah.
Because when they tell you what they like, in a way, they're trying also to be creative. They're trying to project their creativity into your work.
Right.
And you're not a sound designer, so I'm the sound designer. I do my stuff. Then you tell me if you like it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
since we're on the topic of clients, it's time to share our worst client stories. I'll start.
Okay, shut the cameras off.
I have many stories, but I'll just tell one. I once got snookered into doing I was doing a session on an album, and this guy said, oh, I have to do this thing for my dad for Merv Griffin. Would you do it for me? And I was like, okay. What do they need? Oh, they just need a bell. They just need a ding sound for the new Merv Griffin game show. It's like a Jeopardy type thing. I'm like, fine, I can do that. I've got my stuff here. I can do that. So we walk into the room. I've got all my junk, and 9 producers walk in and sit down. And I say, so what? So describe what you'd like. Well, it's when the contestant wins, it's the sound ding when they win. Well, we want something special. Okay. So I pull up my good bell sound. Ding. That's good. You like that? Oh, that's very nice. What do you think? It's nice. It's nice. What else you got? Well, I have a lot of things. So move on to the next bell. Try that one. Ding. And that's nice. That's a really nice bell.
Do you guys have that feeling when you hear too many compliments, it starts to go?
No. What's bad is when you get the compliment, and then what do you think? And so then I don't know what do you think? Well, what else do you have? Oh, we have bell number 3. Ding. And so I go through all these bells, and this goes on and on and on for hours. I'm like, I can also do zling. Oh, can you? Wow. Can we hear that with all of those
Goodbye. Yeah.
sounds? Sure. Let's record those. Okay. Zing. Can you do it backwards? Can you do it? Yeah. Diddling. Okay. I can break up the chord too. And then there's different chords, you know. So this goes on and on. I make 750 bell sounds. There's 9 producers, and I'm like, guys, you know, what direction are we going? What are we going to go for? And they keep asking each other. Now they're getting really worried. And they're like, this is tough. This is a tough choice. And then finally they all conferred. They went in a little room, and they came back and they said, we're going to ask Merv Griffin. He's a producer of the show, so we think it should be up to him. So it's like, great, I'm out of here. I've had many sessions like that.
And did they actually go back and choose the original ding or no?
Oh, that happens all the time. Yeah. Always.
That's
first
what
one or the
happens to
second
me.
one,
I'll go through 800 revisions,
Yes,
only to
right.
find that they wanted to go back to the first thing that I did every time.
Always.
You know?
Yes.
You know, I think the advertising community is probably the most colorful.
Yeah.
Because it's first of all, it's groupthink. Love it, hate it, and it goes backwards. But I think one of the more colorful ones, I think that I did was for AMC Theaters, it was years ago, I created a character named Clip that would come at the beginning of the film. And it was a combination of that and Coca-Cola, and it took a long time to everyone to approve what it's going to look like, and it's a little piece of film that goes, and it was tied in with Coca-Cola, and he goes and he drinks this big thing of Coke, and he looks at the audience and does this little thing, so I just, created this little vocal thing, everybody loved it, went through 20 different variations, everyone's good, okay, great, Coke comes in and says, wait a minute, are you saying that Coke gives you gas? And all of a sudden we're like, no, hate it. And they're like, okay, Scott, you've got to come up with something. It can't be a burp. I said, but he's burping. Oh, can't be a burp. So all of a sudden, it became a big deal. Coke's not going to approve it. It's got to go in the theaters. The animators are freaking out going, we can't animate. We animate this in time. So we went through. I must have come up with 100 versions within about 2 hours. Just the giggles, little cute sounds, and but you like this, sending out quick times. What do you think? And then finally, it was just, it's all craziness, and that's what the part is, because I think what's challenging about what we do is we have all this artsy time to come up with ideas, and then when you put on the spot within that 2 hours of pure hell, just heated, anxiety.
Yeah, also because sound design comes at the end of post-production.
Always.
So in a way, everybody else is like, oh, I'm done. I can't reanimate that part. I can't do that thing. So
Or you spend a week or two coming up with this amazing design. Everyone loved it. You go to the mixing stage and they go, yeah, what else you got? and can I get that in about 10 minutes? And you're like,
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Why don't we close with a question about the next generation of sound designers. What do you think is the best place to start learning to be a sound designer? Where do you start? Because there are so many tools now that didn't exist.
Interesting question, because like I said before, I started out initially with a synthesizer, an analog synthesizer. I always tell people to look at some application like Propeller Heads Reason, which has synthesizers, samplers, sequencers. You have mixing. It teaches you a lot all right in the box. And you don't necessarily have to use those environments just to make songs out of them. Most people think that, I'm buying this application, and how is this going to teach me anything about being a sound designer? Well, it can teach you a lot of things,
Absolutely.
actually.
It's a whole studio.
It's a whole studio. Yeah, it can teach you, about arpeggiators, how to play sounds in different patterns and sequences, the fundamental basics that basically going into designing, sounds and layering and shaping. So that's what I always recommend people is to try to find something within the software realm, because it's easy to get into. Computing technology is widely available now. We have the iOS and the iPhones. There's a lot of stuff that's starting to change now, which is making it easier for people to get into. And the concepts are a lot easier to understand than trying to do it with pieces of individual hardware, which is what I grew up buying piece by piece, mixing boards, limiters, and compressors, and all this outboard gear that was really cumbersome to kind of connect. And now it's a lot easier. So
But one of the things about that is that we had the advantage that it wasn't all in the box,
exactly,
and that we had to learn each thing one at a time, which forces you to really learn what each thing does.
It was expensive too.
Yeah.
Expensive, and I hooked up things wrong many times.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to hook up things wrong in the virtual world, which is nice. You don't make as many mistakes and you don't waste as much time and money as I had done in the past. So you'll get to that point much quicker, and you can spend more time being creative and experimenting, which is what I would have loved to have done back in my old studio days, instead of troubleshooting for days on end, trying to figure out why something wasn't working, or I was like, where the heck is this ground I'm coming from? I'm pulled every cable out of my board, you know, and so.
Diego, what would you say to somebody that was wanted to be a sound designer?
Well, I think there's a couple of things that make sense no matter when you start. First of all is to listen to as much music as you can, because sound design is not really disconnected from music. It's just another way of shaping sounds. So the moment you find something that you love, try to know more about it. And the second one, it's try not to get stuck into what's the flavor of the month. For example, now there's an obsession with dubstep. So it's true. It's true. I mean, now there's a lot of tutorials, a lot of talking about how to create the wobble bass and blah, blah, blah. Okay, but if you learn how to go to the deeper level, you can learn how to create that sound and something else, and maybe something that is your unique sound. So not to get stuck too much with trends or one particular plugin, believing that there is one plugin that can make magic.
There is, though.
Yeah, but we don't say that.
That's true. I think we're just about out of time. I just wanted to thank each of you guys for coming.
Thank you.
And we'll be around for a little while if you have questions. And thank you very much.
Thank you.